From General Mills and Cinnamon Toast Crunch, this is Cereal. My name is Samantha Keiko Yamaguchi, and I will be investigating the death of Jay Gatsby. We all know that George Wilson pulled the trigger, but who ultimately holds the blame? Has something ever not turned out the way you wanted it to? If you had the ability, would you go back in time and reshape the past? So here's the case I've been working on. Jay Gatsby, a wealthy bootlegger, was shot in his pool by George Wilson, on the assumption that Gatsby was having an affair with his wife, Myrtle. Plagued by the grief of his unfaithful wife, Wilson then shot himself, no longer having a reason to live. But before we get too in-depth, let me take you back to the events of the previous night. So your name is Michaelis, am I saying that right?
Well, it's Michaelis. It's Greek.
I apologize. Continue?
Well, it was a night like any other. I had been running my coffee shop when I heard shouting next door. It was coming from Wilson's garage, and it sounded like Wilson and his wife Myrtle were in a fight. This was unusual. They hardly ever fought since Wilson wasn't typically confrontational. Suddenly, I saw Myrtle run out, and there was a big yellow car barreling down the street, definitely speeding. I didn't get a good look at the driver, but they clearly saw Myrtle because they swerved to avoid her, saw an oncoming car, and then swerved back into the road. She was hit head-on. The car didn't slow down, didn't even stop. I think she died instantly.
Why was she in the street? Didn't she see the cars?
I think she was running from Wilson. He had been acting strange lately. Not himself. And frankly, I think he was being abusive.
How did Wilson react to her death?
He was completely distraught, almost hysterical. He kept going on about finding the driver of that yellow car and that he believed Myrtle had been seeing someone else, and he intended to find out who. Wilson believed Gatsby was the one who killed Myrtle.
So it seemed that more people were involved than I thought. Somehow, Gatsby's party made it home safely, considering the fact that Gatsby owns a yellow car. Let's talk to someone who was with him. So, Daisy, describe the events of the night before Gatsby was murdered.
Oh, well, I had been in the city with my husband and some close friends. We were on our way home and we saw an accident on the side of the road, somewhere between the city and East Egg. It had been a rough night. I'd gotten in a fight with my husband Tom, and I was pretty rattled. We had been drinking and everyone was on edge.
Was Tom driving?
Actually, I was in the car with Gatsby.
The same Gatsby who was murdered?
Yes.
What was your relationship like with Gatsby?
I'd say we were friends.
Just friends?
Well, I'd say we were close friends. We'd known each other when we were younger and had recently reconnected.
But wait a second. That's not the story according to Gatsby's closest friend, Nick. Let's hear his account of that night.
Gatsby and Daisy just friends? If by friends you mean intimate lovers, then yes.
Can you elaborate?
They had been romantically involved ever since they met in Louisville 5 years ago, but it ended shortly when Gatsby had to go fight in the war.
But she married Tom, though, didn't she? Shouldn't Gatsby be out of the picture now?
It's more complicated than that. Daisy did love Gatsby, but she could never love him the way he wanted her to. Young Gatsby was definitely ambitious, charming, and handsome, but he didn't have what Tom did, money. Daisy needs someone that can support her elaborate lifestyle, and that's certainly not what Gatsby could do at the time. When Gatsby left for the war, she got tired of waiting and married Tom, who was affluent and came from a good background. When Gatsby returned from the war and found his love gone, he was determined to win her back by displaying his wealth. I don't think he realized that money wasn't going to win Daisy back, not ever. He built up this unrealistic expectation of Daisy, something she could never live up to. Continuously living in the past, Gatsby failed to realize he couldn't possibly recreate his relationship with Daisy. Gatsby just didn't know how to move on so long as Daisy lived right across the bay.
So what's Daisy's part in this?
She led him on. In pursuing Daisy, Gatsby was so narrow-sighted that he couldn't see that it was impossible to recover the love they once had. He tried so hard to make his dream a reality, but Daisy just didn't know what she wanted. Gatsby loved her so much, he would have done anything for her.
Like what?
He'd be willing to take the blame for, let's just say, any crime she committed.
Can you be more specific?
Well, the night before Gatsby's death, I don't know if I should be telling you this. I don't want to betray Gatsby.
He's dead, so what does it matter?
Well, on that night, Daisy was actually the one driving the car that killed Myrtle.
Hold on. I'm no mathematician, but this doesn't add up. Nick says that Daisy was driving the car that hit Myrtle, but Daisy says that she and Gatsby weren't even involved in the crash. Their stories are completely different, and I intend to find out the truth. Tom, what do you know about Gatsby?
You mean that bootlegging, wife-stealing, lady-killing son of
I
a...
take it you don't like him very much.
I guess you can say that. All I know is that no good coward ran over my Myrtle like you'd run over a dog and never even stopped his car.
How do you know it was him?
She was hit by a yellow car. He drives a yellow car, for goodness sake.
Why didn't he stop?
Because he's a liar and a criminal. I told Myrtle's husband, too. I told him he did it. He ran her over in cold blood.
When did you talk to Wilson?
He came to me asking for the driver of that yellow car, and of course I told him the truth. Gatsby got what he deserved.
Let's do some fact-checking.
There was 2 cars, one coming, one going.
It was a yellow car. Big yellow car. New.
So, Mikasa's story matches up with Tom's. It was a yellow car. So, Daisy, some sources tell me that Gatsby was the one that killed Myrtle.
Yes. Like I said, we were pretty shaken up from the night's events and had been drinking. When Tom told me to go home with Gatsby, I knew things weren't going to go well. He isn't always the most careful driver, especially not when he's on edge.
A close friend of Gatsby said you two were more than just friends.
Well, yes, we were seeing each other 5 years ago and he left. But when he suddenly came back, I realized I still loved him.
But what about your marriage to Tom?
I'd never leave Tom, but being with Gatsby was different. Exciting. I knew Tom had another woman and I wanted to hurt him like he hurt me. Maybe it was for the best that he died. They say everything happens for a reason, right? And this way, I didn't have to choose.
I have a gut feeling that Nick is telling the truth, and that it was Daisy, not Gatsby, driving the car that killed Myrtle. She let him take the fall because she had gotten what she wanted out of him. Gatsby made Tom jealous, which made Tom fight for Daisy's affection. So why would Daisy want both her husband and her lover in the same room together, if not to create tension? Why would she deliberately reveal her unfaithfulness to her husband if she actually wanted to preserve their affair? If you were in her position, would you want Gatsby and Tom around each other? Unless you have ulterior motives. She brings Tom with her to Gatsby's party, invites Gatsby to lunch with her and Tom, and then kisses Gatsby in Tom's presence. Suspicious. So that brings us to the final question. Who killed Jay Gatsby? Yes, Wilson shot the gun that killed him, but ultimately, Daisy's actions precipitated the death of Jay Gatsby. She was the one driving the car which killed Myrtle, leading Wilson to shoot Gatsby for vengeance. Although she admittedly loved Gatsby, she led him on, causing him to take the blame for the crime she committed. The Buchanan's selfishness and disregard for the feelings of others allowed them to distance themselves from their careless actions and retreat into the safety of their money, and let other people clean up the mess they had made.
Will you still love me when I'm not young and beautiful?